Hey everybody, we're back with Realistic Prepper. This is our fourth episode, and today's episode is going to be about water storage. We've already done a brief episode on food storage and food preps. Honestly, we could go into much greater detail and we could split it up into two and three part series, and I'm sure we will at some point address both food and water storage in greater detail later. But we figure we give it the once over and then we'll come back.
Hmm.
First off, though, I'd like to apologize for the audio and video issues that we have experienced. We're growing. We're experiencing some growing pains here. Um, it's to be expected, but I'm not gonna, I'm not sitting here, try to, make any excuses for it. It is what it is, and we're learning as we go. And this is not what David and I do for a
No,
living. So
absolutely not.
it's definitely a learning experience
So
for us.
hopefully you can hear me now. Hi, my name's David. I'm the person in the podcast.
He,
We weren't using the right software to record my audio because Jack's the editing guru and
no, let's not
base
let's not
okay,
say
well,
that.
basically it just wasn't recording my audio properly, and that's why y'all weren't hearing me. And also we are now split screen too, right, Jack?
We are now split
Yeah,
screen.
not
Yes.
this FaceTime,
All right.
you're seeing too much of this, and that's not good for business. So,
That's not good for anybody.
nobody.
But yeah, hopefully, when David has a new mic now, and
Yeah.
we were running some different software, and hopefully, if anything goes wrong at this point, it's going to be on us, and
Yes.
we're probably going to end up redoing the show, and we're going to hold ourselves to a little bit higher quality
Yes.
standards from here on out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, especially with the the video was okay, I guess, but the audio was absolutely horrible. And when you're doing an audio podcast, that is the main thing is your audio, and it absolutely sucked. And like I said again, I apologize for that. And from here on out, we're looking to bump the quality level up several notches.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we want to get started here, David. Before the show, we were talking a little bit about the snowstorm, the catastrophic Armageddon type ice storm that we were supposed to get hit by here in
Yes.
Tennessee, and honestly, it kind of fizzled out. Uh, we didn't really get what was expected, but that being said, we're always talking about being realistic
Hmm.
and being realistic preppers, and realistically, that is one of the things that you have to contend with here. Is
Hmm.
this time of year you are likely to have a snowstorm or an ice storm, and you are likely to have temperatures that drop down below 15 degrees or so. And at that point, even if you have insulated pipes and heat, your pipes can still burst, and you can end up being without water for several days.
No doubt. And I obviously, a disclaimer, I'm a native Floridian. I live in Tampa Bay, so I have very little authority to talk on anything to do with snow. I did go to college in Michigan, so I did experience that for 4 years, ice storms and being stuck in that, but that's far different than living in it. And I've always told my wife when I try and educate her about prepping as we go along that, like even just me and Jack, like not that our preps are different, but like my preps for a warm climate are in some ways drastically different than even Jack's preps in what I would consider a moderate climate where he does get snow and heat, not the extreme heat that we get maybe for the long periods of time. But you take somebody like, I guess, the Maine prepper, assuming he lives in Maine,
Hmm.
someone like that, that's a whole different
Whole different level.
approach. I mean, you got to basically, like, if I had to move up north for good, God may that never have to happen. I would, I mean, I start from the ground up basically because you have a much more, again, my threat assessment being hurricanes is my main concern.
Hmm.
Technically, this area has not been hit directly. We've had backdoor hits and weird things happen. Directly hit by a major hurricane in over 75 years. But I can guarantee you it's not been 75 years, Jack, since your last hard freeze.
Generally speaking, I'd say every winter we get at least a couple of weeks where it's cold enough to bust your pipes. It gets down well below 20 degrees. And there's usually about a week to a week and a half where we'll get temperatures down in the single digits or teens. Now, that being said, we don't frequently get hit by really hard snowstorms or ice storms.
Mhm.
Where I'm at now in Middle Tennessee, I would say, we may get a good snow maybe twice a year.
Hmm.
and we may get a good ice storm maybe once every 3 to 5 years.
Hmm.
The ice storm's what you got to watch out for. Snowstorms, typically around here, they're better at dealing with it than they are like in the western part of the state. They'll
Yeah.
have the snow trucks out and they'll have the salt on the major the major
Hmm.
highways. But the ice, there's not really a whole lot they can do about that. When you get hit by an ice storm, it knocks everything out. And I've seen I've seen transformers blow.
Hmm.
I've seen, like I said, people be without water for 3 weeks. I mean, that's just,
It's
it's a fact of life. And like you said, with your situation, it's a little different down there. You have to prepare for different things. But the reality of it is, if you get hit by even on the outskirts of a hurricane, your water supply can be corrupted for,
oh, that's in my opinion. That's and we need to. We'll do a whole. I want to do a whole show on hurricanes when hurricane season approaches in June.
hmm
But our worst case scenario, actually, our realistic worst case scenario for Tampa Bay, being that we are not, knock on wood, prone for a direct hit because of our position of where we are and how deep the waters are here.
hmm
Our biggest threat is a storm hits north or south of us just enough where we don't have any damage, but it knocks out power for 2 weeks. And
exactly.
power without you go without power 12 hours to a day, you start to have no water. But I remember you talking about ice storm. My first ice storm when I went to college in Michigan. I went to Hillsdale College. If anyone's curious, this is Michigan. It's kind of like right there. And I remember it was second semester, sophomore or no freshman year, and the day before it was actually not bad. It was kind of like it is in Florida today. It was in the 40s in the morning. It warmed up, and it was even raining in the evening. And we were outside the dorms and having a good time. And they didn't mention a nice storm, but I'm a Florida cracker. What the hell does that mean, you know?
Right, right.
And I remember going to bed, and when I woke up, I thought I was dreaming. It was like an ice wonderland you go see at the Frozen show at Disney or
hmm
something. And it shut the whole town down.
hmm
They actually, because my college was the main entity in the town, they had to close down the school because the town needed the power. They couldn't power everything, and even the cafeteria couldn't feed us properly. They had to do I called it hurricane food, like box food for us. I mean,
Right.
it was a whole new experience. But that's if again, if I lived up north, that's a threat you all face on an annual basis, and
hmm
involves some serious prepping. But my main takeaway from this snowmageddon or no snowmageddon is look at the if you watch the media and how of course they hype things up, but it's still a fact. Look at the pictures from the stores with the empty shelves. That's not a situation you want to be in. And I've seen that happen though in hurricanes down here.
hmm
You want to be, yeah, yeah, you may go to the store to get some milk or some perishables that if you can find them, but you don't want that to be your sole source 24 hours before where the herd is because you're not going to get any food. Have your stuff before then. So if
Definitely.
anything if you need a visual example of why to prepare, that's Exhibit A, and that's all you need.
Definitely. We were talking about water and that being the main. You can go a lot longer without food than you can water, especially you and I. With we got that
Yeah,
extra we carry around.
I
But I
carry an
mean,
emergency supply with me at all times.
that's right. I carry about 40 pounds of extra on me.
Yeah,
So we can go a lot longer in general. You got about 3 or 4 days without water and you're done.
yeah.
Uh, Now that being said, I think the 1 gallon of water per day to keep you alive. I think that's going to depend on several factors. I
Mm.
want to go ahead and get this out of the way now. And the reason why I say that is a lot of people don't think about the water that they get in their normal food, their normal everyday food.
It's true.
If you have some fruits and vegetables and canned goods and stuff, that there's some water there you're getting that you don't think about. So to actually sit down and drink a gallon of water a day is not really necessary. And I would say most people don't get that in them anyway. And we're fine. I mean, we might be going around. You might say we're going around in a constant state of dehydration, but I'm not talking about something. I'm talking about something that's going to leave you in a serious medical condition here.
Mhm.
Um, I think most people could get by off less than that if pressed, just due to their food supply. Now, And I know that's going to be a little bit controversial right there, but I think the fact that you have to drink an actual gallon of liquid water per day, I think that has been a little overstressed. I don't think you actually need to do that because
No,
I've had days where I drank 120-ounce bottle of water during the course of a day and I didn't die. I was perfectly fine.
no. Especially if you're as we advise most people, if you are bugging in, if you are staying put, sheltering in place,
Hmm.
and it's not in the heat of the summer like you would be down here
Right, right. And see,
in a
your water consumption is going to be your water
yeah.
preps are going to be different than mine because I might be able to get by off a couple of 20-ounce bottles per day and be
Hmm.
mildly dehydrated. But you're going to have a lot of water when you're looking at
It's
temperatures what in excess of 100 degrees in the
if
sun.
there's no air conditioning in
Miserable.
September, if we get hit, your indoors could reach 100 degrees, and the humidity, and that's not 100 degrees in the middle of the country. That's a feels like about 115, 120
Because
degrees.
humidity is 100%.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's the FEMA thing. I think like what we touched on in the last podcast, their ideal is 3 gallons per person per day. That does not all. That's not all for consumption. That's bathing, cleaning, and drinking.
Right.
I think you can get by with a gallon a day for
Basic needs.
for basic needs.
Right.
And I, myself, you got to gauge yourself too. I actually, because I've been born and raised down here, my body is very accustomed to the heat. And yes, I get thirsty in the heat, of course. I try and drink at least 2 Nalgene bottles a day of water, plus the water I get at meals.
Right.
But I actually get more thirsty when I am up north in cold, dry weather. The cold, dry weather and the heat they pump inside the buildings when it's
Hmm.
cold.
Dries you out.
When I was in Atlanta, we're not talking that far north of here. When I was in Atlanta for business 2 weeks ago, I got back to the hotel and I said, I just don't feel good. And I said, David, you are dehydrated. So I went and got some smart water. I drank 2 liters of water before I went to bed. I sat on a plane all day and I didn't, I was not moving or perspiring. I was just dry and thirsty. And also flying does dehydrate you. But so yeah, you got to judge where you are, what your need is. But basically, if you're looking to start prepping before you buy it, but I would submit, but before you buy a piece of food, you need to at least think about your water plan.
I would say that needs to come first, definitely. Like I said, you can go a lot longer without. I think the average person they have some cute statistic that I've read on it, but there seems to be an agreement that most people can go up to 4 weeks, sometimes 5 6 weeks without food,
Mhm.
um, and you just can't go much over 3 or 4 days without water.
No.
And after about the second or third day, you're not really going to be functional. You might live into a fourth or fifth day, but you're really not going to be functional after about 2 days without any kind of liquids. Um,
Absolutely. And
and
you're
and I
also
think I think a lot of people too they may think about drinking water, but also think about water you need for other things. How are you gonna bathe? You need to stay sanitary. How are
Mhm.
you gonna bathe? How are you gonna clean up? How are you going to a lot of your food preps require water. Your
Mhm.
dehydrated foods that require water. If you drink coffee like David and I do, and you have
Yeah.
some instant coffee put back for prepping like I do,
Yeah.
you got to have water for stuff like that. So
And I think, as far as when we're looking at, well, what kind of water do we need if you do have to bug out? And you should, again, though I know I can always make the excuse, well, we're not big fans of bugging out, but we still have our get home bags, and you need to have some method or plan for getting water not at your house.
hmm
Just because you're not always at your house.
right.
You can at least, I mean, again, this depends where you are. If you're out in the desert, maybe not so much. At least where I live, I can find water in a lot of places. Now, it's not potable, or they say it's not drinkable. So
Right.
what I do is I carry a life straw. If you could just Google them, again, not sponsored. Sadly, if you want to sponsor us, let me know. Holler. But life straw is basically this big old tube you drink through, like a straw, and it purifies the water.
hmm
And it can do up to so many gallons, and it might not be the best tasting water, but from what it says, you can literally drink dirty pond water.
I was checking on that the other day when we
Mm-hmm.
were first talking about the show, and I think it says it'll do like 1,000 gallons of water. And I mean
It's
that's going to last most people that last them, near a lifetime right there. That's going to be a
and
lot of
and
water.
I think for your bug out bag, well, it might not hurt to have a Nalgene bottle with water or a clean canteen bottle of water. But then
Hmm.
again, like we talked about last episode, you can't just leave water in your bag or in your truck or car. It's that
Right, right,
water does not go bad, but it gets a taste to it that's not pleasant. I rather have the means instead of hoarding water in my truck or in my bag, especially in Florida,
hmm,
I want to have the means in my truck
right.
to get water. Now, like I have said, I do keep 7 gallons of water in a potable camping container in my truck
Hmm.
that I have to rotate out very, very, very religiously. But that water is last resort. And I would much rather be able to get water somewhere that's clean because you can get water in many different places. Whether you have to use a life straw or if you needed or if you can find a clean source of water,
Excuse me.
and you always have something in your bug out bag or in your car or truck to drink. Always have a Nalgene bottle or just a cup or something.
Now I plan on what I had in my last get home bag. I carried two 20-ounce bottles of water,
Hmm.
and that was it. Now, typical situation. If I get stranded, it's going to be within 15 miles of my home. Two 20-ounce bottles of water, that's going to get me home.
Hmm.
That's going to last me for a day, and that's going to get me home. Um, but I agree with you. I agree with you on a couple of things there. One, you have to have the means to get other water. I believe you should carry, if not a canteen, then one of the bottles you're talking
Yeah.
about. Carry one of those with you, and carry a life straw with you. They're not expensive. As a matter of fact, I need to
20
get
bucks or something.
right. And as a matter of fact, I need to get another one. Well, I didn't have a life straw. I had kind of like the Walmart version of it
Hmm.
for a few years, and during a move, everything kind of got lost in transition. So
Hmm.
I have no idea where that is now. So I need to get a life straw. But definitely carry something like that in your bag. Now I will say around here you need to be careful where you get your water from. If you live in certain areas, where I'm at now, I could probably go down here to a stream and I could probably use the life straw and I would be fine.
Hmm.
Because all I would have to really worry about would be the parasites in the water itself. That being said, if you want to be extra cautious, you might want to boil your water first,
Hmm.
then use the life straw on it. I mean, just to be extra cautious, you can't be too careful when it comes to your drinking water. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you another thing too. There are certain locations here where I would not drink the water if even if I had a life straw and I could boil it. For instance, I don't know if you know about Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
No.
We have a nuclear power plant in Oak
Oh.
Ridge, and I would not even consider drinking water anywhere within 50 to 75 miles
No.
of that place.
Negative.
If you
Negative.
drink that, you're going to be glowing by the next morning. So,
Yeah, you really, yeah, and we will touch on that before the end of the podcast. But you guys, I'd rather eat a food that's questionable.
hmm,
Like I've had food that's technically bad. I've not gotten sick,
right,
but I don't care how strong you are, your constitution. You drink dirty water,
you're done.
folks.
You're out.
Not a pleasant
You're
experience.
out of the fight. If you drink dirty water, you're out of the fight. And I tell you, I've I haven't been. I've been fortunate that I have not. I've never been in a situation where there was a shit hits the fan type situation and I had to drink questionable water. But
Hmm.
I have just been on vacation
Hmm.
and I've drank the local water and got sick from it just
Yeah,
because your system is not used to that. And if the water is questionable, I mean, you have a few hours, maybe 4 to 6 hours after drinking that bad water, and you're going to have the worst diarrhea you've ever had in your life.
it's
And like
true.
David and I were talking about, it's going to be nasty, and no amount of Imodium is really going to help you.
Yeah,
And the thing about that is, it's kind of a vicious downward spiral. And I'll tell you why. When you have diarrhea and you're sick and you're throwing up, you are being more dehydrated. You're making yourself very dehydrated. Well, what's that going to prompt you to do? Drink more of the bad water. You drink more of that, you get
yeah.
even sicker, and it's just a vicious
You want to avoid
downward
that.
spiral.
You
Exactly.
want to avoid that, and so basically, when we're thinking about okay, we know not to drink bad water. We kind of have an idea of the water to keep in our trucks and our bags for being mobile. Life straw, preferably have a little bit of water, but that you rotate out.
Right.
But then have methods to obtain water, especially in an urban environment. You can obtain water pretty easily, at least in the beginning. But for storage in your home, I'll tell you what I do. Like everything, I like to kind of level it out. We live in again Florida, and our water here that we drink. I mean, you can drink it, but it's not the best tasting
It's
water.
not tasty.
No. So we actually have in my home one of those like well, it's called Zephyr Hills down here. Some places called Crystal Springs. It's just the water coolers you see in the office. We get that delivered to my house. When we go through about and there it's 5 gallons per container they bring. We go through about 25
Yeah, it's a
gallons.
big blue
Yeah,
plastic bottle.
they call them bubblers some places
Right.
in the Midwest, a whole different thing. So that's what I generally get 5 of those at a time. Lasts us about 2 to 3 weeks,
Hmm.
and so I always have that cycle going, and then I keep 15 gallons of so basically 3 of those big water jugs stored away in a well, there's no place cool unless it's not air conditioned in my home, but in a dark place.
Right.
And that's my emergency water. That 15 gallons. That's emergency drinking only water.
Hmm.
And I have a hand pump because again, the water cooler machine has to be powered, so I can't use that when we have a grid down. So I have a hand pump to get the water out of that big jug, and I have 15 gallons of drinkable water. And that's minimal. That's assuming that shit hits the fan on the day that I'm on my last drop of water from my normal supply. So normally, I would have close to 40 gallons of drinkable water in my home, and then I have what I do is I like to also buy bottled water,
Hmm.
and sometimes I'll buy too much. And really, in Florida, stored in your garage, I wouldn't go past 6 months. You can drink it; you're going to be all right, but it doesn't taste very good.
After I don't know how it is there. I'm gonna assume it's worse there
Yeah.
because of the heat and the humidity. But
Hmm.
around here, you would be good with that water for maybe 6 to 8 months, and
Yeah.
then after that, you're gonna have this really plasticky, really
It
nasty
doesn't.
tasting
It doesn't
water.
taste good. So
No.
I keep about
I mean, don't get me wrong.
yeah.
You could use
You
it
could
in an
drink it.
emergency, but I wouldn't recommend
Yeah.
it.
I keep 75 bottles of those water on hand for what I call cleaning
Hmm.
and bathing. And then as you move on from that, so I have the drinkable water, I have the water you could drink, but I'd really rather not use that for cleaning and bathing. And then I have methods to get water and that you can drink it. Life Straw actually makes, I forget what it's called, it's the same brand Life Straw, but it's made. It's called like the family one, and it's this big thing where you pour dirty water in. It goes through a whole filter system and comes out clean.
Hmm.
That's how I would clean dirty water for my house. And this summer, it's a project goal of mine to start because we get so much rain here. You can fill up a barrel in a bad storm here. Is to work on a rain catchment
Hmm.
and start that, and again find a use of that. So that's kind of how I structure my emergency water. Again, I don't have a well, at least on my home property. Actually, my commercial property here has a well, but again, there's no hand pump. The power has to be on to get the water out of the well. I have no long term plan for water because I don't plan long term like that. It's not what the show's about.
Right.
But I have ways of getting water, and I think having 40 gallons of drinkable water on hand really at any given time is sufficient for 2 adults and 2 small
Well,
girls.
honestly, I think that puts you ahead of probably 95% of the population right there in terms of being prepared. Your water preps are definitely better than mine. The way I'm situated right now, I have one of the 5 gallon containers you're talking about
Hmm.
that we keep. Usually, we'll keep it on hand for about 2 weeks and we rotate it out.
Hmm.
Have one of those. I generally keep the cases of water we get here are 32 bottles. So I
Hmm.
generally keep 2 to 3 of those cases on hand. They don't last very long around us because we're working out. And like I said, I teach jujitsu, so I take those with me, and I might go through 3 or 4 of those in a day. So they don't last very long, but we generally keep like 2 to 3 cases. So you're looking at a minimum of 64 bottles of water plus 5 gallons. Um, my neighbor right down the road from me does
Hmm.
have a well with a hand pump, so
Nice.
so that
That's
that
golden.
that would come in handy right there, and we are from what I have assessed, we're pretty much on the same page as far as preps being prepared. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's one of those people I would want to call into my team, so to speak,
Hmm.
in an SHTF situation, but it is definitely one of those people that you could probably go to and say, "Hey, can I get some water for my family or whatever?" And you'd probably be fine. There's also a stream less than a quarter of a mile down the road from my house, freshwater stream, probably 20 feet wide,
It's
about two,
huge.
3 feet deep. And if I had a life straw, I'd be golden. So
You could, I mean, you could argue you might not even need a life straw, but and
you
also
you
that,
could argue that, but honestly, I had rather be safe than sorry. So
and this
any
would lead me
water.
to this though. In a grid down, even water that is normally like we don't have them down here, but like you have there are streams that are safe to drink out of.
Hmm.
People might be doing things near those water streams
Exactly.
that might be polluting it. So
Exactly.
I think Jack, you're right. Assume it's polluted.
Right.
It's probably your
Always.
safest bet.
Anytime you have running water like that, I'm going to assume that there's some pollutants in there, or some bacteria, or something in there that I don't want in my body. So
Hmm.
what I would do with any water that I got out of the stream, I would boil it, and then I would use a life straw in it. And that's just my personal thing. I have to get one. I have to get another life straw. It's going in my get home bag. But yeah, your water preps are a lot better than what mine are, and that's one of the areas I'm definitely working on. But as it stands now, I would say I'm probably more prepared than probably 85, 90% of the people in
Oh,
terms of water.
again, I said it before. That's one of my first questions when I'm trying to be a little instigator, and I got friends I'm talking to about preparing. They're kind of like, David, that's cute and fun what you do, and we're going to come to your house. I'm like, no, you're not. At least most of them,
Yeah, you're
not
not going to be
all.
welcome at my house.
But now there's a few I take in. But anyway, I say, where's your flashlight and where's your water? And
Hmm.
they're like, I say, think about this, because I don't think that this is off the realistic path. I guess we could call is. I think a probable terrorist attack is contamination of water.
Hmm.
That can happen in an instant. The
Oh, I'm
water is
sure.
turned off. I
Oh, yeah.
mean, even I do some work with my city here, and we turn off the water just standard. Oh, repair lines down, boil water notice, repair lines offline for 5 hours.
Hmm.
You got kids at home. What are you gonna do for water? You need that. I mean, that should be one of the first questions you ask yourself is like that minute after something happens, how are you going to get your water? And you got to have water stored away. You really there's really just no way around it. But
Right.
definitely, my project for this summer is rainwater catchment. I want to learn more about that. I got to educate myself more on that,
Hmm.
and 'cause I don't really know. I don't. I mean, I guess you could in a pinch drink it, but you have to purify it first. But
Right.
I don't know, Jack. Why don't you talk about when you and I mentioned offline in when we were pre gaming about kind of our distaste for bleaching water and for purification tablets.
As far as bleaching water goes, I mean, I've heard conflicting information about it. I have family members they swear by it, and I have one family member in particular. Like I was telling David, she was prepping before prepping was cool.
Hmm.
She started back in '01 with the Y2K,
Hmm.
like 1998, 99 for the Y2K scare.
Hmm.
That didn't happen, by the way.
Yeah.
Uh, and she she was a firm believer in bleaching the water, and there was a ratio that she used. It was like 1 drop per so many
Hmm.
gallons or whatever. Uh, the the problem with that is if you overdo it, even by a little bit, now your water is basically poison. It's undrinkable. Because bleach is poison. I don't know. If you don't believe it, pick up a jug and try it sometime. But
Yeah.
bleach is absolutely poison.
Mm.
You have to be careful with stuff like that. I'm not a big fan. I had rather boil my water and use a life straw than I had bleach it. But she was real big on long term preps,
Mm.
and I guess if you want to look into, if you're the type of person that wants to store multiple 55-gallon barrels of water for long term, then I guess a bleach might be your best bet. Um, but like I said, I'm not really a fan of it. I'm more of a fan, as David said, of being prepared to be able to get more water and be able to
Hmm.
purify what you can get your hands on than I am long-term water storage. Because even if you have, let's say you have 4 or 5 55-gallon drums of water,
Hmm.
that's going to run out. That's not an everlasting water supply.
No.
And if you don't have provisions to get more, you're still screwed. So
And it's so easy to get contaminated water. I mean,
it is even
for your water to be contaminated, that
it really
55
is.
gallon if you're investing all of your focus, oh, I have this 55-gallon drum of water,
Right.
I'm good. It takes a droplet
And
for that to
you're
be
done.
gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're done. And the thing is, and I've seen that happen. As a matter of fact, there was Well, I haven't seen it personally, but a friend of mine was telling me he had a buddy who had these 55-gallon barrels of water, and he was getting ready to rotate them, and that's what he did. He's the same thing as my aunt. She
Hmm.
would, store these 55-gallon barrels, and he had 4 or 5 of them, whatever. And something happened, and there was like a gas leak,
Hmm.
like a raw gas leak, and all of it got contaminated. So he spent the next few days having to pour all that out and completely redo everything, and
Hmm.
it was a mess. But I mean, you can't take a chance once that has been under that type of environment, those type of circumstances. Are you going to risk drinking that water and possibly dying from contaminated water? I mean, it's just not worth it. As far as the water purification tabs go, I don't know how many of you out there who may have tried these, but they are nasty. Now they may have some brands out there that are better than others. I don't know, but the ones I have tried, they make your water almost undrinkable.
Yeah.
I guess in an absolute emergency, if you had no alternative whatsoever, it was drink this nasty crap or die. You could do it, but I tell you, I think you're probably going to have. If you have children, you're going to have a
Hmm.
real problem getting them. You know, David and I might could tough it out and say,
Yeah.
okay, we've drank nastier stuff than this before, so
Hmm.
it's a life or death thing. But your kids don't think like that. If you have small children, they're not going to drink this. They're just not. They're
No.
going to. It's going to come right back up, and I would not. If you're hardcore, and that's your only alternative, maybe. But I
Mhm.
really would not recommend the water purification tabs, at least
Yeah.
the ones that I've tried.
Yeah, I've had them. My church went to Honduras. My goodness, it was I was like 12 or something on this missions trip that I went on with them, and we were there for a week. We stayed with Americans that are stationed there, and they were accustomed to the local water, so they were fine.
Hmm.
But for us visiting, there was like 10 of us. They had those big 5 gallon drums, and they dropped the
Right.
tablets in, and it wasn't anything very refreshing. And even you had to be very careful. And again, we could this goes into water too. There's other ways to get sick off water besides your mouth. You got to be careful about bathing in dirty water or
Oh
cleaning
yeah,
in dirty water because if you
definitely.
have a cut or any
Hmm.
membrane, I believe that you expose to contaminated water,
Hmm.
that water can still make you sick, even through those methods, not just drinking it. So again, you can't be careful enough with water, and really the only long term thing that I would do, really, is if you have the ability to have a well with a hand pump, that is the golden crescent.
Hmm.
You still want to have other preps that we've described, but that's really the only long term thing that I would invest in is if I could, have a well with a hand pump. I would do that for our commercial property here. It has a well, but we're not in an area where if we are agreed down for long term, I want to be seen pumping water.
Right.
So that's why I'm not really going to go down that road with my well here. So
You mentioned something a few minutes ago that I think we can do a whole nother show on. By the way, when you said that there's a few people you would invite, and the people telling you that I'm just going to come to your place if it hits the fan, and I've been told that a few times too, and you'd have to hear my response to that. But that's a whole other show in and by itself right there. Is who do you let into your group? And at some point, I think that might be a good topic for us too.
absolutely, I believe there are strength in numbers. The whole point of this podcast is that Jack and I don't want to do this on our own. We don't want to be the only person prepared. I want my neighbors prepared.
Right.
That's better for me. There is, to an extent, a herd mentality when done right. I shouldn't say a herd, just a community done right can really help you out. So yeah, definitely if you can get someone else on board with this realistic approach to prepping, to preparedness, don't even say prepping, just call it preparedness. You're going to be money ahead.
And I'll kind of close by saying this. I mean, it's not about, David and I, we're not about, Armageddon and tinfoil hats, and
No.
there are some conspiracies out there that have merit and some that don't, and whatever. And I have my beliefs on it, and I'm sure David has his. But that's not really what we're about here. We're about a common sense approach to just being prepared for everyday things that not only could happen, but actually do happen quite frequently. Like I said, at least once a year it gets cold enough that the pipes freeze here,
Yeah.
where I'm at. At least, I pretty often you have bad enough weather there that you need to be prepared for things like that,
Absolutely.
it happens frequently. To not have any type of preparedness, to not have any type of preps or water or food or anything like that, is just beyond me. And that's what Dave and I are about. And it can be something as simple as, well, let me give you an example. When I leave just for a trip to Nashville, which is about an hour and a half drive for me,
Hmm.
the way I drive anyway. It's over 100 miles, and for me to drive to Nashville, I mean, one of the first things I do is I will take a couple of 20-ounce bottles and put them in the car with me. Even though I have my get home bag in the trunk and I have a couple of 20 ounces in that, I'll take a couple of 20-ounce bottles, I'll set them in the freezer, I'll let them get really not freeze, but get them really good and cold, and I'll put them in the car with me, and that's what I'll sip on the way there. So if something happened, God forbid I break down on I-40, but if it
Hmm.
happened, I would have enough water that I could hike my way back to the nearest exit ramp and get to a service station if I had to, if it come to that. And
Hmm.
it just as simple as that. That has happened to me at least 4 times
Wow.
that I can think of where I have been. I've had a flat tire, or my car has died out here. The fuel pump went out once on my car. One time I had a blowout. Another time, I had some other mechanical issue, and it's happened to me about 4 times. And I had to walk back, and this was in the heat of the summer. 3 of those times, and one time was in the bitter cold of the winter. And after that one time of being miserably cold, hiking my way back, only 3 miles I had to hike back, but it was
Hmm.
18 degrees, and I had a light jacket and a t-shirt on. And
Dang.
it taught me a valuable lesson. So now I keep blankets in my trunk. I keep an extra jacket, a change of dry clothes, water. I've had to hike back to the nearest exit, which was about 4 miles, or the nearest service station rather, which was about 4 miles away, and it was 103 degrees outside. And if I hadn't have had those bottles of water, I might not have made it. I may have, but I wouldn't have been in good shape when I got there. So just simple little stuff like that. We're not, talking about going overboard and storing huge
Hmm.
tanks of water on your property,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Save that for your what is it, doomsday preppers.
Hmm.
But for us, let's keep it real and just make sure you and your family have enough water in case of an emergency, and a way to get
Absolutely.
more water.
That's crucial. Have water and a way to get more water because there are a lot of water sources you may not even be thinking about, especially in an urban environment.
Hmm.
Just so many places you can get water. Real quick, one thing I do recommend, a few things besides the life straw. I forget what it's called. Urban Prepper did a video on it, and even our water faucet here at our office, we have it. A lot of companies like us, when you have an outside spigot, we don't want where you can just turn our water on.
Hmm.
You have to actually have the tool. It's like a plumber's tool. It looks like a little like
Right,
cross
right.
tool. I
Special
forget what
rigs
it's.
to get
Yeah,
it
I'm
turned
very
on.
bad with tools,
Right.
guys. I forget what it's called. But anyway, it's real cheap off Amazon, or just Google Urban Prepper water tool and it'll come up. He did a whole video on it, and I keep that in my in my get home bag because there's plenty of places. Again, we're not grid down for that long of a time initially. That's kind of common sense initially, but assuming that you're going to be getting home and you're going to be passing by commercial buildings, you might be able to get water by
Right.
using this tool. So I would invest with your life straw. Also have tools like that to get water in
That's a
any
really
way you
good idea.
can.
I actually hadn't thought of that at all.
I did until I saw his video. I'm like, duh. I'm like, why?
Why
But
hadn't I
then
thought
when
of that?
and then when we got our new water faucet installed in front of our office, it came like that. It's like it's on our key ring here in the office. You have to go out and use that tool to turn the water on, so the homeless can't bathe in it at nighttime. So
Well, David, you wanna give them our information here, guys.
sure.
Guys, if any of you have any questions or comments, you comment, down in the little comment section below. We love to read those, and anybody who has
Mhm.
anything to contribute, even if you have something nasty to say or whatever, go ahead and let us have it and tell us how you really
Yeah.
feel.
Hey, I'm a big one. No,
We
again,
can take it.
thank you all for your patience during our audio visual issues. We hope you enjoy this style better, where you can A, hear me, and B, see more of Jack and not all of me. Um, Make sure you like us on Facebook. If you go to just Google onto Facebook, go Google the Realistic Prepper. We will come right up. We're about almost 50 likes. Once we get to 100 likes, we're doing a gear giveaway, and we're also going to start posting more things there and not just the podcast. So information we find out, links to cool things, because I'm not about that. We are your only resource. I want to be a conduit of resources for you because there's a ton of, I shouldn't say a ton, there's a lot of people, a lot of organizations that make really good guidelines of things to prepare for, and I want to be able to link those out to you. So make sure you like us on Facebook. Our email address is down below. It's therealisticprepperpodcast@gmail.com. So email us your questions, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye.